Welcome, everyone. My name is Agbo Ikor. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm SPARK's Policy and Advocacy Director. I've been working with SPARK for a little over 7 years now, started out as a community organizer, and have since grown in my leadership into this director position. I'm so honored to be in this space with all of you and to moderate this panel of brilliant organizers, scholars, artists, and movement makers from an array of different movement spaces. Justice Now was created as a space for cross-movement collaboration and power building. We know that united action is a cornerstone of transformative change. In that spirit, during this panel, we're going to get into some great conversations about movement solidarity and how all of our struggles are interconnected. We'll discuss common goals and explore opportunities for collaboration, innovative strategies, and fostering solidarity and leveraging collective power. So, without further ado, I will briefly introduce our panelists. Look like we got a chair, so awesome. So first, Rula Abi-Samra, who is joining us virtually. Rula calls Georgia, Louisiana, and Lebanon home. Supporting people seeking abortion care led Rula to reproductive justice organizing. Since joining Amplify in 2021, Rula has supported partners in building collective power for expanded abortion access. They also consult for movement organizations nationwide. Rula believes in the strengths and vision of Southern BIPOC freedom workers to lead us toward a free future. Everyone give it up for Rula. All right, and the panelists, as I call you, if you feel so called to join us on stage. Next up, Graciela Kane, professionally known as Giella, is a transdisciplinary artist and DJ based in Atlanta, Georgia. Known for their soulful sets blending house, reggaeton, and soca, Giella is committed to creating safer club spaces and has opened for Channel Tres, Tokisha, and more. Founder of the LGBTQ+ dance party Duval Folks, they've performed at South by Southwest and released the It's Fine EP in 2024. Giella is a leader and advocate in the queer party scene. Give it up for Giella. All right, we have Ayman Shahadi. Ayman is a professor at Columbia College and the School of the Art Institute in Chicago, where he teaches courses about Palestine. He is the founder and executive director of Uprising Theater, an artistic platform for Palestinians and other historically marginalized communities. Give it up for Ayman. Shanda Neal Green is the National Organizing Director of 9 to 5, National Association of Working Women. She leads the organization's vision for economic justice by organizing working women and non-binary people of color to make changes in worker justice, family, and community sustainability and power building. Shanda is a mother to a wonderful daughter, Lyric, and partner to her beautiful wife, Tamara. Welcome, Shanda. And finally, Kal Jazeera. Kal Jazeera is a Palestinian teaching artist, performer, and community organizer based in Chicago. They work to use writing, music, and comedy as mediums to connect, play, and storytelling with liberation. Welcome, Kal. All right, squeezing in, getting cozy on the stage, that's fine. All right. Thank y'all so much for joining us. It has been great getting to know you, working with you, and creating this space and panel. And we're gonna get into this conversation. So this question is for everyone. And I'll actually start with Rula, who's joining us virtually. If you can speak briefly about your movement work.
Yes, wow, my movement work. I'm like trying to remember all of the things. So I guess my movement work really started with an international organization called Girls Rock, which used, yes, shout out, yes, thank you GRCA fam, where we use music as a tool for education and liberation with young people. And from there, I was connected to an organization in Jacksonville called the Jacksonville Community Action Committee, where we supported families who lost their children to state-sanctioned violence, and just kind of highlighting like just the ways in Jacksonville, Florida, where the police and like we have 3 military bases and how militarized like Florida is, to be able to, you know, give families like that support that they need when they lose their children to the police. which led me to doing HIV case management. So a lot of my work there was like working with young people experiencing homelessness and supporting folks navigating this terrible like medical industrial complex. And that led me to Atlanta, where I met my beautiful partner, Victor June Omni, who is a grad student, and I'm a student at Georgia State now. And currently I work at the National Network of Abortion Funds, where I build power for local abortion funds, yes, across the US. And, you know, with that, just like thinking about how to think about the dance floor as a space for liberation and building power with like other organizations and like, you know, like using like dance parties as like, you know, sexual health liberation space, like building, you know, bond money, like just being so creative with what we can do with the money has been like what led me to like Duval Folks in Jacksonville. And so, yeah, just like all the things like interconnected all the time, basically being a Capricorn and doing 3 much. Many Capricorn placements.
It was giving Capricorn. All right, thank you. Ayman.
Hi, everyone. How are you today? My name is Ayman Shahadi. I am a lecturer at Columbia College in the School of the Art Institute. I teach about Palestine. I teach about the Palestine-Israel crisis. And I teach about the apartheid and the genocide that's currently happening today. As you probably all know, the issue of Palestine is one of the most difficult issues to discuss. You oftentimes get doxxed, you get canceled, and so forth. And that's something that's happened to me throughout the 13 years or so that I've been teaching this crisis. I've actually survived teaching it for 13 years. But my classes, thank you, but my classes have actually been canceled before. And what I'd had to do was conduct campaigns a few times to get them back. And this was before the genocide. And so, you know, teaching at these institutions that are funded from outside sources that tend to be anti-Palestinian caused the cancellation of my classes. And so what I decided to do was create my own house. And so I decided to create a place where Palestinians and other marginalized communities can be able to come and tell their stories. And then in a couple of weeks, we are opening the first Palestinian American theater in Chicago. Thank you. And so I believe in creating platforms. They're vital. They are so important. And so first off, I want to thank everyone here at SPARK for providing a platform for the Palestinian people. It is very important that we do that, and we continue to do that because the so-called liberals, the Bidens and the Kamala Harrises of the world, didn't even allow a Palestinian to speak at the DNC in Chicago. And so this is why conferences and platforms like this are so vital and so important. So a deep thank you to all of you for creating this platform for the Palestinian people. On a final note, what I want to say is platforms are vital. You know, I've created platforms on an academic level. I'm one of a few people in the country to teach, to lose my classes, and to get them back as a Palestinian American. First Palestinian American theater in the United States. I ran for Congress on a pro-Palestine platform. I wasn't expecting to win, and I didn't, but I think it's important to go out there and to put yourself out there and to really try to change things, because as individuals, we can definitely do that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Again, just honored with the brilliance that we have on stage today. Shanda?
Yes. Can everybody hear me? Okay, there we go. Hi. I'm glad to be here with everyone and sharing the space. Thank you for the invite. Again, I'm Shanda Neal Green. I'm here representing 9 to 5. And our organization is really focused on power building. And what does it look like to have members lead the work that are directly impacted by the problem, right? So a lot of times, you know, we campaign, we do these issues, but those who are impacted by the issue are not in the room, right? And so that already puts them at a disadvantage. And so our work is really drenched in member-led. So what that looks like is our members really lead our work. So when you think about things like paid leave, sexual harassment, reproductive justice, our members who are impacted by those issues are leading those efforts on the local and state levels, because we know that those are the things that really impact us. And so that's what we really try to get people to understand, like really get involved in your local and state politics, because those are the things that touch you first, right? And so when we talk about like the federal policies, if you don't stop them at the local and state level, then they're just only going to get bigger and bigger as they increase, right? So our bread and butter looks like, what does family people-centered policy look like? And we do that in 3 chapters. So we have chapters in Georgia, Colorado, and Wisconsin, but then we also feed that up to the national level. So what that looks like is family and community sustainability, worker justice, and then also, I'm sorry, y'all, I'm losing my train of thought. Family, community sustainability, worker justice, and community building, so power building. And so we develop women leaders from all across the state of Georgia, all across the country, to really get them educated and build awareness and empowered, right? Building that power with them and not for them, and get them politically activated, because we know that it takes all of us. Everybody has a role. And so what does it look like to train women to really get in their communities and build power with those folks, regardless of if it's an issue that we work on, or if it's something that like, hey, this is what we want to take on, so we're like, okay, let's make it happen, right? How do we get in there, power map, strategize with those people who are directly impacted, so that we can make a difference and not just showing up to the Capitol, spitting knowledge and facts, and not really having a real clear understanding of what the people who are impacted by those issues really need.
Thank you so much. Love community-led work. Love that you're able to develop leaders in that way, and definitely with you on that local and state level organizing. It's very, very important. Cal.
Good morning. Is it on?
Yep.
Yes. Assalamu alaikum. I just wanted to say thank you for having me again. My name is Cal Jazeera. My pronouns are they, them, and I am a queer Palestinian based out of Chicago, which sometimes just feels like a movement by itself, just being, honestly. I work as a teaching artist, specializing in social emotional learning. So I work with a couple of different nonprofits, including Playmakers Laboratory and the Brainchild Collective, where we go into classrooms and teach kids creative writing, residencies that lead in showing them how to tell their own stories. I work in doing confidence workshops with young adults and getting them ready for career building. And as far as movement work goes, I'm really interested in bringing play and storytelling into our community organizing work. I go into movement spaces, and I'm sometimes the person that's like leading a game and doing group facilitating, as I come from Second City, IO, The Annoyance, so I've got like that improv background. I'm like, let's play, let's laugh, and build that trust amongst each other. So yeah.
Thank you so much. You know, we have like these cultural organizers and just movement leaders building other leaders as well. All right, has Rula been able to join? Did we fix the audio with Rula? Is Rula good to go? Oh, did they say something in the chat? Rula, if you can hear us. Oh, you can hear us? Okay, you're just we're just unable to hear you. Let's see. Technical difficulties, you know how it is. All right, well, we are definitely going to hear from Rula, but we'll just keep this moving, and then once the audio is fixed, just let me know, and we will circle back. All right, so we're actually going to start with the issue of Palestine, because I definitely wanted to bring that into the space and be very intentional about talking about that. So I know, Cal, Ayman, you both speak to this issue just very well. You have such like a vast history of organizing around Palestinian liberation. So as it's becoming more clear how our struggles are becoming more interrelated, not only domestically but globally within our movement spaces, what have been the conversations or general responses to these global struggles, such as the Palestinian genocide, and what have people been called to do?
So that's a really good question. On the one hand, the Palestine issue has seeped into the mainstream, right? And so what I mean by that is everybody knows about the issue of Palestine. Everybody knows what's happening over there. Unfortunately, it's taken a genocide to do that. But the reality is that this is a situation that's been going on since the late 19th century with this idea of creating a state, a majority Jewish state, on a territory where the majority wasn't Jewish. Now you couple that with settler colonialism, and it means disaster for the indigenous population. And so to this day here, if you look around college campuses and organizations such as these, there is opportunity, there is room, and there is space to talk about Palestinian justice. But in terms of the country, in terms of the system that exists here, in terms of, say, the Democratic Party, the folks who consider themselves liberals and say that they represent marginalized communities, I'd give them an F in terms of the way that they've handled this situation. It's interesting that people are so upset at the right-wingers for supporting Trump, but the liberals should be upset at Kamala Harris, at Biden and the Democrats, because they haven't demanded a stop to the genocide. And so it depends. It depends on which pocket of society we're talking about in terms of the way that this issue has moved forward. In terms of the younger generations, my students, for example, I have never, in the 13 years that I've been teaching this course, seen such a Palestine, how could you not be? I mean, we're talking about people that are getting genocided right now. How could you not have this concept of human rights, dignity, justice? So from that aspect, the Palestinian issue is moving in the right direction. But in terms of the system that's in place, we have a lot of work to do. And unfortunately, this is not something that can change overnight. This is a generational issue. This is something that is going to take a generation to change in terms of the systems and the mindsets. I will say this, though. You cannot support the black community. You cannot support the LGBT community. You cannot support the rights of the indigenous people in this country without the Palestinian support, too. So you must support Palestine, because it is the litmus test of being on the right side of history today. And boy, do I see people on the wrong side of history. We need to continue to move this issue in the right direction. And I think that we are, in terms of grassroots organizations. I think in terms of the mainstream, we still need to continue to knock on those doors. We need to continue to run for political office. I know that there are people out there who don't like politics or what have you. Quickest way to change is through holding office, actually. And so we get the right people in these positions, we can change the issue on Palestine.
Absolutely, thank you. And I think you stated so beautifully how important just solidarity is. Cal, did you want to add?
Yeah, I just want to say first and foremost, recognizing that Palestine is an abolition issue. Palestine is a queer issue. Palestine is a reproductive justice issue. And Palestine is a liberation issue. This is, it's all connected as far as, when we talk about police brutality, where is that police brutality relationship with the IDF going? When we talk about it being a queer issue, what about our queer folks that are Palestinian both in and out of the diaspora, and that they deserve liberation as well, we deserve liberation as well. And so there is a lot, post-election especially, in this space that we're sitting in. The propaganda machine is really working overtime. And it is working overtime and getting really scary to kind of create this divide between Palestinians and the Black Liberation Movement and the reproductive justice movement, and just all of the progress that our movement orgs have made. Because if we start to connect the dots, we are dangerous to them, and we have too much power. And this kind of like post-election wave, I try to remind myself, like, okay, this is just TikTok, this is just what's happening on Twitter, because we know that the Black Liberation Movement, Black Solidarity, and the Palestine Movement have always gone hand in hand, and we have always been together, and there's always been solidarity, and so that solidarity needs to continue, and don't believe these TikToks of people saying, I'm gonna go get my Starbucks. Don't believe these tweets. Believe what you see in this room. Look to your left and look to your right, and know that the work is happening here, and we're gonna continue doing that work. That's what I have to say to that.
Yes, thank you so much, y'all. Like, all of our issues are interconnected. It's so important that we realize that. And Cal, as you said, you know, our power comes from the fact that we do know that we are connected and that we do strategize together. You know, that's what this conference is about. Before we get back to Rula, I do also want to raise the other global struggles that we are contending with. So I was wondering if you could also speak to, you know, what does cross-movement collaboration and solidarity look like as global struggles such as the conflicts in Sudan and Congo? You know, what does solidarity look like? You know, should we get that next iPhone? You know, who do we need to speak to? How do we elevate these issues? Whoever.
Yeah. I mean, boycott, 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 boycott. You don't need that iPhone, first of all. I think we're being asked to really change ourselves, and we're being asked to, you know, I was here for the Spark After Dark conversation last night for the podcast, and Raquel said something which was like, we've been really good at pointing to like the oppressor and the oppressed and being like, here's how they should be uncomfortable, how do we keep making them feel uncomfortable so we make these changes? And she said, well, it's getting to that time where we're gonna have to start sitting with our complicity in being in this country and being Americans, like, where are we complicit? And sitting with our discomfort, and that is where we're gonna get growth. And that discomfort is like, oh, I am stuck in the consumption loop. I think every time I see something new and shiny that I need it, and I'm not thinking about how much that's costing someone else. So I think that solidarity is being like, if I watch that show on Disney, if I go to McDonald's, if I go to Starbucks, and these are just like the in-our-face like pop culture version of the moments, but there's like more to that. If I make that choice, where is my comfort, convenience, and consumption costing someone else? Because this country does a good job at hiding that part from us. And being like, okay, if I buy the Nike sweater, who made it? How much did they get paid? Are they okay? So I think that's where it comes to the solidarity of being like, we're gonna have to change how we move. That's what I've got.
Absolutely. You know, dissonance is such a powerful emotion. And if you can lean into it and just challenge yourself, a lot can come of it, you know, with solidarity. Did anyone else want to speak to it?
I think it starts with platforms as well. You know, platforms are so important. Like we're opening up this theater in Chicago. It's a Palestinian American theater, but it's also a theater for historically marginalized communities. How awesome is it going to be when Black artists come into Uprising Theater and they represent their struggle, and Palestinian artists do the same, and these people meet each other and they learn about each other and they get to know their struggles. Their struggles are very similar, by the way. With connections, there results empowerment. And I think that these types of platforms will really resonate down the line. One of the challenges that my students have faced is that once they take my class or once they're done with university, with these organizations, is that there's nowhere for them to go to tell their stories and so forth. And so these platforms are thus vital because we want you to go out there and get a job and start working and make something for yourself or whatever it is that you're supposed to be doing. But we also want you to continue working on these very important issues to create change. That's why these platforms are so important.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you both. I want to bring Rula into this space. I'm hoping the audio's working.
Hey.
Yay!
Hey, okay.
Oh, y'all felt my relief too. Okay.
Yeah, thanks to folks who were working hard on it to make this work. I really appreciate it. I'm sorry I'm homesick today, everybody. would have really loved to be there in person. So, first of all, I cannot see anybody in the room, and I like can't hear the audience, and so stop me if I say something really, really off track, and also let me know if something's resonating or if I have to cut my time. So my name is Rula Abisamra. I use she and they pronouns. Both are good. I am with the Amplify Georgia Collaborative. And I've been working with Amplify as staff for 3 years. Before that, I worked with multiple partner organizations of this collaborative. So I was on staff with NAPOF, the National Asian Pacific American Women's Forum, which I might come back to in a minute. That was like my first, oh, now I get what organizing is home. I was on the board with Access Reproductive Care Southeast, Georgia's only abortion fund. Way before that, had my first job was with Feminist Women's Health Center, and when I say working with folks who needed abortion care, like saved my life, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, I mean, do you want me to chime in on a question? Do you want me to say more about my work in the movement, or where are we at now with the questions you want to pose, Agbo?
There we go. I had to flip it. All right. Yes, we can get into some questions. I'm just trying to figure out what would. Yes. All right. So, Rula, I wanted to ask this because I know you work with Amplify, which is a collaborative, and the point is to leverage our collective power to affect state and local level change in Georgia around abortion and other repro issues. So, with that, thinking about just our movements more broadly, how can we leverage collective power across different social justice movements to counteract the rising tide of anti-Black, anti-queer, and anti-trans legislation, as well as the violent suppression of mutual aid and protest?
Okay, so when I proposed this question, I was like, that's a great question. I don't know yet. We're all looking for the answer because sometimes it feels like the state continues to grow its, it continues to grasp for more ways to suppress, to beat down our strategies, our advances, as we continue to make them, the actors of the state, uncomfortable. When it feels like we are making advances, we find ourselves having to face new threats. And so I don't have answers, but I do have some thoughts and examples. I know here in Georgia, just this year, we have seen the state government in more than one way attempt to criminalize bail funds that are, we're mutual aid style. We're going to have community bail funds that are looking at supporting social justice actors, protesters, and freedom fighters to make sure that when we use our free speech rights, we're able to also, you can say I have a First Amendment right and then still be criminalized, arrested. You have to go through the criminal justice process, and so bail funds exist so that you don't have to go through, predatory, high interest bail and bond loan places. And the state passed a law that would make that kind of formation be illegal, that you only can bail out up to 3 people in a year before you have to register as at the same level as a bondsman. That was recently, it was brought to court. It's been held up, but just temporarily. We don't know what's going to happen with that. The state also has been really using extreme charges on folks who they're organized, right? So you're organizing, I'm going to call that organized crime because somebody in your group did something that I'm going to consider a crime, like littered. So they're using all these building blocks of, a little criminalization here, a little criminalization there to form a net that would catch folks who are trying to organize or want to support organizing and make everyone who wants to support them more fearful. Those things, I think, like a lesson there is like, we shouldn't be too comfortable with the fact that, you know, a little bit here and a little bit there exists. It's always going to come for folks and then going to be available to use, to put together into a net like that. I don't know. I was never comfortable with it. I feel like I'm always like, it's not paranoid because the state likes to do stuff like this, but we do have to, like, we're fighting fires on all fronts. And solidarity across movements, I think, comes really naturally. If anything, well, let me think about this. I want to say it comes naturally. The things that like sort of squeeze it out of us are, number one, institutionally, we do, like, nonprofit organizations they think about, like, where is the resource coming to pay my staff to work on this program or to support any of the things that we do. And those often come in the form of, like, grants from a funder or a foundation that says, you know, I'm giving funds for a specific purpose. You write a grant application and it says, I'm going to do X, Y, Z with it, and it should be within the mission that I, the donor, care about. And so then the foundation or the nonprofit organization will become more and more focused, right? That's one area that, like, forces a sort of breaking up or siloing of justice movements. The other, I think, is it comes through individuals, like the socialization that we go through, like, teaches us to see ourselves as separate from other people, our struggles as separate from those of other people. The comfort that I have exists here just as long as other people are not, you know, like, we're taught to misperceive. I guess I'll say, like, the 99% are really actually in this together, but we're taught to misperceive that I'm going to lose something if you gain something. That's what we're told over and over. And so that breaks us apart. It silos us. But I think it continues to come what feels like naturally to the people that I work most closely with, the folks who turn up at the Capitol and they want to organize, the folks who come to community meetings and they say, you know, I know that, you know, this organization works on this issue, but I see all these connections. Or my own colleagues, you know, they say, like, can we do this also and this also? And so we're balancing, like, how do we stay focused on some goals so that we can put one foot in front of the other for the years it's going to take to really understand the strategies and the opposition and move a campaign forward. But we can't actually do that if we're not paying attention to and building relationships with the folks who are in movements that are not just next door to our movement, but, like, it's not really like we have separate houses. Like, we do, the walls are porous. We are holding hands across them. And I mean, I've seen that come up in really practical and tangible ways where our reproductive justice partners and collaborative members are holding Cop City teach-ins. They are showing up to fight the anti-trans and anti-LGBT student bills that are coming up in the Capitol at the same time as they're going to the Capitol to say, like, we need this bill that will make abortion more accessible and repeal the current bans.
And Rula? I'm just going to jump in real quick.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure we have time for the other questions, but I really loved everything that you were mentioning. One thing that sort of, like, resonated with me is, like, how do you know that we are building power? How do you know that we're actually having an impact? Is when the state fights back. So that just shows how important just working together is. And I do want us to move on to some other questions because we do have some other great panelists that I definitely want to hear from. So I'm going to ask this question in two parts. So first, Graciela, I want to ask you, it's going to be the same question, but in what ways can movements focused on economic justice, disability justice, environmental justice, all of the justices, and/or racial justice intersect with reproductive justice to create a more either comprehensive or just creative approach to liberation? I know you're an artist. I know you're out here, you know, liberation through dancing, you know, things like that. So I'd love to hear just your perspective on this issue.
Yeah, I think a lot has been said, but I think that a lot of where I even came to my consciousness about how all of these struggles are like interconnected was really when I was doing HIV case management work and realizing that like, yeah, my clients don't have access to certain like sexual, reproductive, like, education or like harm reduction, like tactics. And the clinic that I was working at was the only like sex positive, like harm reduction like approach to where like my clients were able to get like that healthcare, especially if they were like trans or if they were queer. So just like being able to have like other folks that look like them, like be able to give them that care. And I think, realizing that like, yeah, like through HIV, like access is like interconnected with reproductive justice. And the reason why they didn't get certain care was because of like redlining, and like redlining is tied to land sovereignty. And so just like understanding, I think that all of our like movements do interconnect in certain ways. And through like student organizing, realizing that like a lot of folks are not like in that space as well. At Georgia State, we have one of the highest like Black populations compared to HBCUs in Georgia. So it's a predominantly like Black campus, and like organizing through like Palestinian like organizing, having to get like my colleagues and my like other students to like understand like what the Gilly program is and how that connects like with like APD, and like how that is over, how like they're sending like folks over to Palestine, but also like realizing that like a lot of us like grew up in the South through like an education system that completely flattened like what slavery was. So of course they're not going to understand like what that is connected to a genocide, because the state has completely reframed like what the genocide was for chattel slavery. So how are they going to understand like what is happening like through Palestine, And so I think it's just like what being in Florida, like organizing under like the fascist state of like Florida, coming to Georgia and it not being that different. I think like what I have learned as a student organizer is just like what does like true like ethical struggle look like, and how hard it is, and like we can be in right relation with each other, but it's still like I'm still gonna be upset with you, I'm still gonna be angry with you, you still gonna get on my nerves, but like what does it look like for us to like organize together for real? Because the right is doing that. They see the fractures in our movement, and that's why they were able to gain like the power that they were able to gain. And so I think like through like this like collective like struggle, and also just like collective organizing, like what does it look like for us to be like in right relation with each other so that we're able to like get our movements together? Because right now I feel like, just like I said, through student organizing, through like abortion access, I'm like, yeah, like I was doing HIV case management. I understand the attacks of bodily autonomy. So why aren't folks like in HIV like access like working with like abortion funds as we see these like bodily autonomies like being under attack? And so yeah, I think it's just like realizing that we have so many brilliant like experts across movement, and we need all of us, and like getting creative and getting savvy and just like doing the impossible because we're like already there. And I think that's why it's like so important that we're continuously dreaming, using abolition to like think outside like those boxes that we never thought could like be, because we're already there. So yeah, hopefully that answers the question.
Yes, absolutely. And Shanda, I wanted to ask you that as well, because I know 9 to 5 is a labor organization, but y'all approach it from just like a very, I guess, unique way. It's women-centered. It's, what is, women's work, and how are women treated in the workplace, and how do we make that better? So I'd love to hear from you around just how we can intersect, whether it's like labor justice or, whatever your organization speaks to, how do we like intersect that with RJ to create a more comprehensive view of liberation?
Yes, sure. And our organization does, because it's kind of marries labor and community. So that's kind of like, we're kind of speaking to what you were saying of our like unique approach. And so when we think about to answer your question around how do we kind of intersect all of these different justices, right? Whether it's disability, how do we look at those things that make, okay, why are you keep going in and out?
Because you're like moving them
Lot. So using the mic is very challenging for me. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. Teamwork makes the dream work. Okay. The ability to have people make informed decisions about their bodies, right, and the reproductive issues that are out there. And so for us, what that looks like is having an
It's not you.
It's not me. Yay. Okay, see, it's not me. Yay.
Right.
Okay, sorry, y'all. So what that looks like to address some of those issues is what does the intersectional analysis look like? So like actively considering how different forms of oppression intersect and impact individuals' reproductive experiences. Community engagement, build broader coalitions by collaborating with organizations and activists working on diverse social justice issues, advocating for a new policy, push for legislation that addresses the root causes of reproductive disparities across different marginalized groups, and lastly, education and awareness. Educate the public about the interconnected nature of reproductive justice and other social justice movements. So for us, that's really what we try to do. So earlier when I talked about how do we educate and train leaders and go into the communities to knock doors, to canvas, to have discussions and really hear what people are going through and not just helicopter and saying, this is your issue, this is what you're impacted by. Now let's go and make it happen. No, it's like, what are they impacted by and how are their issues connected to this broader issue? And I think kind of to your point earlier, what you were saying, and to the point last night, like it is important for us to do that reflection and also look at what biases that we are holding, because we also grew up in America, right? So we're not free or from those things, right? Even though we organize it in the space, we also hold our biases with groups and other people. So it's also time for us to also check our own selves too. So I definitely agree with that.
Absolutely. I'm like, come on, notes. All right, I know we are short on time, but I do want to pose this to the panelists, and if you can do this in one sentence, that would be ideal. And I'll start with Rula. When you think about 4 years from now, what would you like to see?
Us still like to see us thriving. I would really like to see that our relationships are stronger, not diminished, and that they're multiplied. That political education has continued about like roots of how we got to the place where we are, causes that share struggles together, so that, you know, I know we have a lot to do, but relationship building, the continuing to community of informed, politically educated way.
All right, I'm going to cut you off because the speakers and the mic, just enemies of progress. Giella, if you want to give us one sentence, when you think about 4 years from now, what would you like to see?
I would like to see the fall of the U.S. empire.
We got 4 years. Get it together.
Mic drop.
Ivan.
I'd like to see a free Palestine.
I would like to see full liberation and full solidarity from all of us in the room and the people that we work with.
It's a tall order, but the fall of the U.S. empire, reparations, land back, and free Palestine with the right of return.
Yes.
You know?
Yes, absolutely. Again, we have 4 years, so get it together, y'all. So
It starts now.
It starts now at this conference. So thank y'all so much. I asked that question because this conference space was designed to be held every 4 years after the election. So when we come back into this space, are we celebrating the fall of the U.S. empire? Are we celebrating a free Palestine? So keep that in mind when you join us 4 years from now. Come back, with their updates. And again, thank y'all so much for joining us. It's been such a pleasure hearing from you, learning from you. thank everyone for joining us today, and I will see you around this conference. I'm around y'all. They're around. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
My microphone. Yes, here we are. Give it up for the panel. Again, they're going to take a picture. Let them know you love them. Let them know that you saw them and heard them. I'm going to jump in. Oh, my God. Because y'all so cute. Stay right there. Stay right there.